What is up, RPG nerds? Back for another Octopath Traveler video. I've been making a lot of these recently because you guys have loved them. If you enjoy RPG content or Octopath Traveler, please check out my channel. I'm Brighton Nelson from RPG Ranked, and I hope you enjoy this video. Alright, we are going to be making a tier list of all the jobs in the original Octopath Traveler. I don't know what exactly this order is, but I'm going to go with it. And starting off, we have the Apothecary, who is going to be in C tier. None of the jobs are like bad in this game, so that's why C tier is the lowest. But Apothecary, while being a fun job, is pretty niche. So, first of all, let's get this out of the way. Alphen is OP. Like, Concoct is amazing. Like, Alphen as an Apothecary is awesome, but putting it on a second person isn't always the best idea. You get two ways to break. You get axes and you get ice, and neither of those are all that great. Yeah, then you get the ability to poison, which poison's actually really good in this game in some situations, so that's nice. And you get rehabilitate, which is really good against certain boss fights, but like I said, it's pretty niche. Being able to heal all status ailments as well as prevent them is good. However, it's not the best thing ever. In a lot of circumstances, there's not like a ribbon type thing in this game that prevents all status ailments, if I remember correctly. There are things that like reduce the chances, but I can't think of anything that like prevents it except for that ability. So against certain bosses, it is a godsend. Then you also have a healing ability and a reviving ability, which are both worse than the Cleric's, and Alphen's Concoct can do it better. And then they have an axe ability. Like, the Apothecary is basically the equivalent of a red mage in this game, and red mages are never really that good. They can't do that much. Alphen is an Apothecary. Alphen is an amazing character. He's really good. However, the Apothecary job is not really the best job you can put as a secondary job. So yeah. Alright, let's move on to the Cleric, who I put in B tier. Great but outclassed. There are a couple circumstances where the Cleric you really want in your party. The final boss, you want to, the Galdera fight, you want to have someone as a Cleric on one team because you can't have Alphen on both teams with his Concoct ability healing. However, yeah, so that's a good circumstance. Another good circumstance are any of the bosses that spam magic, because Reflective Veil is absolutely broken on those boss fights. Add the Dancer's Divine skill and you have a team-wide Reflect. It's broken. Then you can add in some other things. So, for example, being able to buff your elemental defense, that's great. And having one of the best heals in the game with Heal More is awesome. And some light attacks are good, but light attacks are better covered by the Sorcerer and even the Starseer. The buffing is better covered by the Dancer or the Starseer. Even the Runelord, the Warriors are pretty good buffing, or debuffing with so many of the different classes. And the healing I don't think is as good as Alphen's Concoct. It's a little bit more accessible at the beginning of the game, but I mean, I still put it in B tier. That's still a good place for the Cleric, but it's not as good as some of these other jobs in the game. Alright, let's move on to the Dancer, which I'm going to put in A tier. A lot of people don't love the Dancer, but I do, as you can tell by this. Their final ability is broken when in terms of buffing. If you want to put Reflective Veil on everyone, if you want to put Star Song on everyone, if you want to put, what are some other broken buffing abilities? Not Sidestep. That's a Transfer Rune one. But yeah, there are a lot of things you can do, or you can make multi-target, single target attacks hit everybody. So there's a lot of good uses of their final ability. Peacock Strut and Lion Dance are also amazing abilities. Panther Dance has its situational uses, and being able to hit Dark Magic at the beginning of the game is good. I don't think, since the only characters that can buff attack and magic attack is the Dancer, I think that they're better than the Cleric because that's something that only this job can do. And while that's not always the best thing, it is really good. Oh, by the way, for the Cleric, I forgot their Divine ability is one of the best in the game. Divine skill. So, yeah, but I think that this job isn't quite as outclassed because it has a really good Divine ability, just like the Cleric, but it also has two abilities that never become outclassed by Alphen or anything like that. So, that's probably one of the more controversial picks on my list. I don't think that they're, like, so much better than the Cleric, but I think they're a little bit better because they're a bit less outclassed. All right, let's move on to the Hunter, which I'm also going to put in A tier for 2 reasons. One, they're amazing at AoE attacking and breaking enemies that have weakness to bows. And even better is Leghold Trap. Without Leghold Trap, they'd probably be B or C tier, but Leghold Trap is one of the most broken abilities in the game. It slows down enemies, and in a game where bosses can have like 3 or 4 turns, Leghold Trap gives you time to prepare for that, and it is really good. You want to definitely have a Hunter because of that. And also another decent ability is Take Aim, which increases your accuracy to amazing amounts, and it's a good way to cure blind if you don't have some way to cure it with an Apothecary, or you're out of healing items or something like that. And that critical boost is nice. Rain of Arrows is a nice single hit ability. True Strike can be good at a certain point in the game. You can have some good different abilities there. Thunderbird and Mercy Strike are pretty mid. Mercy Strike's good in a couple of cases, but overall not really the best. And then the Divine Skill is one of the worst. But the Hunter's Leghold Trap and Arrow Storm put it in the A tier. Even after you get the Warmaster, it's still not even outclassed because of Leghold Trap and because there's not a multi-hit bow ability on the Warmaster. So overall, the Hunter is someone you should have in your party at all times. Alright, let's move on to the Merchant, a broken class. You get some really good abilities. Early in the game, Donate BP is easily one of the most broken abilities. You donate BP, you get a lot of speed on your Merchant, donate BP over to like a Scholar, and you just one-shot the whole battlefield. It's obscene. Then you also get some other awesome things. Obviously, late in the game, Sidestep Transfer Rune is one of the most broken combinations I can think of in like any game. Hired Help. Once you have a lot of leaves, you can just spam the final Hired Help ability, and it's really good. It's not going to be as good as Divine Skills, but while you're building up Divine Skills, while you're building up your BP, it can be really, really good. Rest can be good for the early game. Then the Wind Attacks can be good for the early game. You have a lot of... being able to collect money early in the game is also very good. They're just a very solid class. They have 7 ways to break enemies, which is nowhere near any of the other classes, except for the Warmaster. Obviously, they're not on the top tier, but throughout the game, they're very good, and especially at the end of the game, when you combine them with the next job, the Runelord. I'm going to put right behind the Merchant, because you have the Merchant for like the whole game. And yeah, the Runelord lets you do tons of extra damage, elemental damage, on top of your physical attacks. And you can transfer rune, which is amazing for sidestep, but can also be pretty good for things like Abide and Stout Wall and a couple of those other single target buffing abilities. Yeah, the Runelord is really strong and can make Tressa absolutely broken. Runelord Tressa is... yeah, I don't even know how to... there's no words. It's just so good. And yeah, Runelord is very powerful. It's not the best of the secret jobs, but it is one of the better ones. Alright, let's move on to the Scholar, who is the perfect example of an outclassed job. Once you get the Sorcerer, the Scholar is not very good for much, except their Divine Skill can be pretty decent, and their Analyze ability has a couple maybe uses, but you can usually find... in the late game, you can find weaknesses without having to use Analyze. So yeah, the Sorcerer is very much outclassed. I mean, not the Sorcerer. The Scholar is very much outclassed by the Sorcerer. The only time I can really think of you ever wanting to use it, like ever really use it in the end game, is to what am I saying? Oh, the Galdera fight, where you want someone to have a way to break magic, even though you can't put Sorcerer on both teams. Although I do think that the Sorcerer is a really good secondary class for the early game, I think just having Cyrus and then giving him a secondary job is just good enough. You don't really need 2 Sorcerers, because you can't have the Elemental Augmenter, and it's kind of hard to put Peacock Strut on 2 people, right? And boost BP of 2 people and all that stuff. So just having 1 Scholar is enough. So yeah, Scholar's outclassed by the Sorcerer. They are great for a long time, but they are outclassed by the end. And you don't really need someone to have the Scholar secondary job, because leveling it up is kind of a waste of JP when you could just be using Cyrus anyway. Alright, let's move on to the Sorcerer, which I think is the best job in the game. 3 hits of elemental attacks is very good for breaking. It does obscene amounts of damage, especially if you buff them, if you get either Therion or Tressa having like the thing that buffs fire or wind damage, if you have Alfric's Allspices, if you have Elephant's Enlightenment, if you have Dracing's Spell, like there are a lot of different abilities that make the Sorcerer broken. And even on their own, they're already broken because they're hitting 3 times with elemental magic. And they have all the elements, they have everything you need to be awesome. And well, I mean, yeah, they amazing for regular encounters. And the Warmaster is pretty dang good. However, the Warmaster doesn't have 3-hit all enemy attacks. The Warmaster is a little bit worse because it's not as reliable, because whereas the Sorcerer, every element is just as good, the Warmaster, like, some of them aren't as good. Like, Guardian Lion Dog is going to be way better than, like, the bow attack that hits 1 person or something, right? Like, you can't... The Warmaster is a lot less reliable because the Sorcerer is equally good for each element, and it does an obscene amount of damage, and it completely outclasses the Scholar, whereas the Warmaster doesn't completely outclass any of the job classes. Yeah, the Sorcerer is just broken. Alright, let's move on to the Starseer, easily the most disappointing of the advanced jobs. I'm going to put in C tier. So a good buffing character. Shooting Stars is good for finding out weaknesses. It's good. It's fine. The buffs are good. Star Song is a good buff, especially with the divine skill of the Dancer. Outside of Star Song, it's like, I mean, that's already... Yeah, that's their like one thing that isn't very niche. Like Shooting Stars, there are going to be very few times where you couldn't get the job done. Like you could use Analyze, or you can have Study Foe to figure out weaknesses. You don't really need to be wasting your time with Shooting Stars. It's not as good as the Sorcerer's abilities. Star Song is good, but Divination, it's not really as good as like Lion Dance or Abide. Well, at least as reliable. Let's see, what else? Celestial Intervention does have niche uses, and it's very good in that certain case. But yeah, otherwise, BP Boost is very flawed because if you actually want to use BP, it just wastes a turn of it. Or what's it called? Ethereal Healing ability, Regen, is not very good in this game. It's kind of stupid. Yeah, so basically, it's only really good for Star Song and Celestial Intervention, but yeah, I think there are better ways to buff your party members than use Star Song in most cases. Because if you want to buff your physical defense, you can just use Mole Dance, or you can use the Merchant's first hired help ability. And if you want to boost your elemental defense, there's no point because you could have just used Reflective Veil. So overall, the Starseer is pretty underwhelming, especially for an advanced job, and yeah, I don't think it's really that good. The Thief is awesome. 2 debuffs that are very good with HP Thief, which carries for the first bit of the game. Steal SP and Share SP, overclocking people's SP is absolutely broken because this is a game where you never want to be wasting time late in the battle restoring SP. Like losing 1 turn can be the whole difference of winning or losing a boss fight. Or a regular battle that's hard, I guess. And Thief just is really good in this game. Stealing SP, sharing SP, debuffing the enemy. They have it all. And they are, personally, my favorite physical attacking job out of the original 8 jobs. The Thief is very good. Definitely should have one in the party if you can. Alright, let's move on to the Warmaster. The Warmaster, not quite as good as the Sorcerer, for reasons aforementioned. However, the Warmaster is very good. Winnehild's Battlecry is probably the strongest of all of the divine skills that can do insane amounts of damage as long as you have good weapons equipped. You have access to a large variety of different attacks, and you also have that one Chimera thing, which can be very powerful as well, because you don't really need a lot of those old weapons anyway. It's kind of like the equivalent of a throw command in a Final Fantasy game. You get a lot of different variety here, and while I don't think it's as good as a Sorcerer, because each weapon is not consistent on how good each of the attacks are, Warmaster is amazing. You should definitely use it. Not as good as the Sorcerer, but you should definitely use it. Alright, and saving for last, my least favorite class in the game, Warrior. A lot of people put this much higher, but I really don't think it's that good. Insight could be good if you build, if you do Ulbrich bolsters defense, and then use Insight or Stout Wall or whatever, but you can make him a tank like that, but that's not really that good. Spearhead is nice for challenge, but it's not really good as a secondary job class. Basically, the only thing the Warrior has going for it is if for some reason you want to do a Bide or Stout Wall with a Transfer Rune, but there are better ways you can buff the party, like the Merchant's first hired help ability that buffs the defense of the whole party. Or some Guide or Allure, I bet there's a better version. Basically, the only reason you really should have the Warrior is because, one, the stat boosts are alright, I guess, and because 1,000 Spears can be really good against people weak against Spears, but that's so niche. Just hitting people with Spears, unless you're fighting an enemy that has a Spear weakness, the Warrior class is just completely outclassed. And if you're trying to break, let's say you have an enemy party and everyone's weak to swords, right? You could hit with level slash, but you could also use the Merchant. A lot of the problems is that the Warrior is just worse than the Merchant. It's worse than the Hunter. It has 2 ways to break, which is worse than the Thief and the Hunter, who have 3 ways to break. There's no debuffs, no buffs that are notable. I mean, there are buffs, but they're not really that notable because they're just worse than Mole Dance or Lion Dance, in most cases. And honestly, there's not really a point of the Warrior for most circumstances outside of 1,000 Spears. Alright, thank you guys for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, I have a lot of other Octopath and Octopath 2 videos on the channel. You can check those out. Check out my Final Fantasy videos and stuff. You can also check out the website rpgrank.com for a lot of fun articles. I got a lot of rankings for Octopath Traveler on there. You can also buy some merch down in the description if you would like some RPG ranked merch. Thank you guys all for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please check out the channel. Like I just said, it would help so much. Thank you all for watching, and have a fantastic day. Peace out, RPG nerds.